I'm curious about finding out how things start. Why does a person start writing a book? Why did you choose that jumper this morning? Why did you choose this university in the first place? It's like listening to a good story. Why did you come and listen to a 24-year-old who's not much older than you, but who maybe has something to say, but has as many doubts as when he was sitting in one of those chairs in his introduction to politics classes not long ago? Being honest with you, the doubts never go. You just learn to ask the right questions. And a central message that I want to convey today is that everyone has their own experiences, their own decisions to make, their own passion, and there's no right or wrong in how you're contributing to fight climate change. You might hear something that resonates with you, that pushes you to do more or pushes you to do something different. But don't take it as one of those LinkedIn posts where people like to brag about their achievements, which so easily triggers my imposter syndrome. Take it as if a friend gave you a sneak peek into their life, their ambition, their difficult choices. So I'm Nicola Blasetti. I'm currently a civil servant working in hydrogen innovation. And over the past summer, I've been Youth G20 delegate for Italy, working on climate change and sustainability. So my dad is a biologist. He works in a natural science museum in Italy. And whenever I had a question about the environment or the natural world, I knew I could count on him. My mom used to help out my granddad in his farm with the animals, picking up chicken eggs. And she was never worried about getting her hands dirty. So I owe a lot to all the time I spent outdoors, and I owe a lot that to my parents. Because a study from 2017 by Catherine Hand et al. Says that if children grow up experiencing and exploring the natural world, they will develop what's called biophilia. So the biophilia hypothesis says that humans have an innate affiliation to life and lifelike processes due to how we've been experiencing evolution. And this affiliation is particularly strong with children. But an increasing disconnection between kids and the green and natural environment is leading to increased obesity, less problem-solving skills, and a loss of motivation to protect the environment. So first lesson of this talk is, if you want to grow human beings that care about the environment, make them explore the environment, because you fear what you don't know, and you cannot love what you don't know. So my first memory of doing something related to the environment and nature dates back to primary school, when during school break I would go outside in the garden and just look down at insects. And then all my friends started joining in. So imagine a group of 8 years old looking down a single ant for hours. But it was cool because it was the first time I got people interested in something so small yet so precious. But I guess things got much more complicated as I grew older. Attending the Model United Nations in New York, that's when I stumbled upon the topic of sustainable development. I think it was this first exposure to sustainable development that led me to choose the course Politics and Sustainable Development here in Warwick in 2016. When it later came down to choosing a university, I came here to the UK to improve my English, experience such an international culture, but I had to leave home and start a new chapter. And I'm thankful for the 3 years that I spent here studying things as varied as energy innovation, climate law, and my dissertation on the Green New Deal. As fellow Warwick students yourself, you will be well aware of the dominant internship culture, which definitely took me by storm in my first year. I wanted to put into practice what I was learning, and I contacted all the environmental think tanks in Italy, many of them. And I started writing some articles, some blogs. But then in my second year, I started narrowing down my interests. I got more interested in climate policy, the European Union. And this shows you that as you explore things, as you're open to new things, if you reflect on what you like and don't like, eventually a path starts unfolding in front of you. So I reached out to a few EU-based climate NGOs, asked if I could intern there. Off I went to Brussels, hosted by Climate Action Network Europe. So if you want to learn and grow, find people that value your work, that listen to your contribution. And I was lucky enough to find them in Belgium. So while academic and interest and work experiences are fun, they don't define us as people. We are much more than that. One of the best memories I have at university are actually from my band, or the music I made, or the music videos. You learn to get over stage fright, talk to a crowd, to find satisfaction in a creative process that only belongs to you. So you may never know, this might help you with your next job interview, true story, or simply make you happier. Fast forward, third year of university, different hairstyle again. I experienced climate advocacy in Brussels, and I wanted to see how are countries and international organizations dealing with climate change. So I found the International Climate Negotiations team at the Italian Ministry for the Environment, contacted them, and they hosted me. Off I went to Rome, and as part of the training, I went with them to Bonn in Germany for the UN Climate Conference in 2019. And there I got another perspective on climate action, what international fora are doing in this regard. Life was good. I released my first EP that summer, and I was about to start my master's. I remember going for multiple walks, just walking for hours, taking notes, deciding what to do with my life, what masters to do. I asked myself questions like, when you wake up in the morning, what makes you get out of bed? Very cheesy, but I warmly suggest to ask yourself that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What motivates you to get out of your house every morning? I just walked for hours and made notes and decided to attend a master in environmental policy. There I am. I was lucky to attend almost the entirety of my course before COVID hit, and that's where I filled in my knowledge gap that needed to be filled before entering the job market. And then COVID hit. Yeah, I did my exams online, my dissertation online. You might have experienced something very similar. And it was quite a surreal moment. Summer went by, and when it came down to find a job, it was quite a challenge during COVID. I like finding a job like finding the right partner. Sometimes you think it's the right one for you, but maybe it's just the timing is off. Sometimes you think you really go well with each other, but it's just in your head. Or it's just that the time is wrong, like the Dire Straits tell us. So over the years, I had explored different routes, distilled what makes me happy and allows me to have an impact. And my present job is where all of this has taken me. Then earlier this year, I became Youth G20 delegate for Italy. It's me on one of the many video calls. And this opened up a whole new world and a whole new approach to climate action. I was negotiating with these other 19 delegates from all over the world, compromising and negotiating, and that's when I realized that what we all want is just solve the issues that our planet is facing. And one of the main lessons from all the experiences, and particularly this one, is that everyone has their own role in fighting climate change. Some are activists. It's okay if you're not. Some are mediators, like to talk to politicians on the news, on social media. It's okay if you're not. Sometimes some want to set up a startup. Guess what? It's okay if you don't want to. You don't have to be all of these at once. You don't have to be any of these at all. Contributing to this cause is not about what you should do. It's about what you can do. What are your talents? What are your passions? What are your skills? What can you bring to the table? We need people that do advocacy and push for more ambitious climate action. But we also need mediators that take us from business as usual to a low-carbon economy. We need people that study the problems and the solutions. We need writers and artists to rethink this system. It doesn't mean that you have to be all of these at once. It doesn't mean that you have to be any of these at all. So reflecting on what you've seen at this conference, thinking about it, going back to your friends and family and talking about it, this is how you start changing the world. So where I'm at now, I mentioned to you that I'm very interested in the role of the public sector in innovation. I love the idea of governments kickstarting innovation to fight climate change. and also to improve industrial competitiveness in the country, but also exploring different routes to the future. So on my day-to-day job, I work as Innovation Support Officer at the UK Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. We provide public funding to accelerate the commercialization of low-carbon technologies, in my case, hydrogen technologies. And this funding falls under the Net Zero Innovation Portfolio, which is a 1 billion fund that government has set aside to invest in 10 different technological areas like offshore wind, hydrogen, carbon capture usage and storage, etc. So why is innovation necessary? Well, innovation is one of the tools that we can use in fighting climate change, in mitigating climate change. In the Net Zero by 2050 report by the IEA, almost 50% of CO2 emission reduction by 2050 will come from technologies that are currently under demonstration and prototype stage. So in the next decade, we need to really invest in it and explore what routes we have and what technology can be used in our favor. Why hydrogen? Well, when we talk about hydrogen, we talk about molecular hydrogen, so H2. It is very rare in its atomic form. It is highly reactive. It has high specific energy and low density, which makes it a good energy carrier or vector for energy storage or industrial uses. Hydrogen is currently used to produce fertilizers in oil refining processes. And in the EU, 95% of the hydrogen currently produced comes from fossil fuels, called grey hydrogen. So why hydrogen then? Hydrogen can play a central role in decarbonization. It can help decarbonize sectors that otherwise could not be decarbonized. There are three main areas. Number one, it can offer a flexible form of energy storage, especially in energy systems that are heavily reliant on renewable electricity. You can produce green hydrogen using renewable electricity, splitting down water in the electrolysis process into H2 and O2, and save it up for later. Number two, hydrogen has a number of uses to produce, as I mentioned to you, as feedstock to produce steel or ammonia. And if you use the low-carbon hydrogen, you can cut emissions. Also, hydrogen can be burned for heating purposes, both in buildings and industrial sites. And by burning hydrogen and not natural gas or coal, you avoid the carbon emissions. And hydrogen can also help with transport on the road, heavy trucks, but also maritime shipping. So if we want to get hydrogen used in these areas and cut down emissions, there are challenges that need to be faced. And this is where innovation comes in. How can we reduce the cost of low-carbon hydrogen and make it competitive with grey hydrogen and natural gas? How can we find more efficient and less expensive ways to transport hydrogen from A to B? How can we keep testing hydrogen in the industry, transport, power, and heat sectors? This is something that innovation must do. And the UK government published the UK Hydrogen Strategy in August 2021, where it sets out its ambition to meet the 5 gigawatt of low-carbon hydrogen production capacity by 2030. And innovation is part of meeting this goal. This is where my team comes in. We engage with industry and stakeholders to understand the barriers to innovation. We identify what support is needed to promote hydrogen innovation, and we design and launch relevant funding streams for them to apply to. And we support successful projects in their RD&D work. I find this to be an amazing job because it requires you to be creative in the solutions to these challenges that innovators face. And what matters to me the most is that you actually see firsthand the impact of these technologies in the reduction of emissions. It is a long process though. Innovation does not happen overnight. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. It's a process of trial and error. Success does not come from the potential failure of a single project, but it comes from looking at all the projects you've supported, the different seeds you've planted, and get an overview of what comes out of it. So just to give you an example of an inspiring project that came out of the low-carbon hydrogen supply competition from 2018 to 2021, and is now, and looked at integrating offshore wind with an electrolyzer, all under one wind turbine, and a desalinator. So they got water out of the sea, desalinated it, and used for electrolysis using renewable electricity to produce green hydrogen. This is a success story because he went from feasibility to demonstration and is now attracting private and private investors. Very cool design, a great team of engineers, public and private funding can take a technology from just an idea into our oceans. I hope that today I managed to give you an insight into who I am, my story, and how I found my own voice and my own role in all of this. Find what resonates with you. Look inside you, find what makes you happy. Don't leave this room thinking that you're not doing enough, because this is actually just not true. You're here, you're actively engaging in the discussion. You're looking for ways to contribute to the fight against climate change. You're eager to address these challenges, like the many people I met on my path. And there is already enough on our plate to be anxious about the future. So don't compare your story to the ones of those around you. Listen to the storytellers, get inspiration from them, but ultimately listen to your own voice. Thank you.